decided to join me. I'm so excited. Today is my first episode of the Drill and Chill Saga. I've decided to title this one Groovy because today we're going to dive into the world of pop art and showcase one of the works from the fabulous Peter Max. If you don't know what's going on, which you may not, I usually don't, then you're going to want to run over to my channel and check out my introduction video where I explain all about the Drill and Chill Saga. I am going to briefly show you the artwork that I'll be working on today. You know, I keep saying she's from France, but she could very easily be from anywhere. I just feel like she's from France. I'm gonna try really hard not to edit very much, but I don't like it when I say and. So chances are I'm gonna edit, but believe me, I'm not cutting anything important out of there. I'm gonna start my timer now, and on your marks, get set, go. This particular diamond painting is by an artist named Peter Max. Peter Max was very prolific in the 60s and 70s, maybe even all the way up to the 80s. It's been a long time since I've read anything about him or looked at him, so I kind of forget. But he is a pop artist. Has an interesting story. He actually, so he grew up in, I believe it was Germany, somewhere over in Europe during World War II, and his family had to escape because of the persecution of the Jews. And so he ended up with his family going to China. And so as a child, he grew up in China, and he grew up looking at all of that Chinese artwork. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was like a Buddhist monastery right across the street from his house where he grew up. So he had a lot of influence, a lot of Eastern influence and stuff in his art, which I think makes him interesting. I don't know. But when you look at this painting, first of all, you don't even need to really like Peter Max. All you need to know is that the colors in this thing are just off the chart. It's almost an entirely red diamond painting, and I'm partial to red, even though brown is my favorite color. I also like red. It's very bright. It's very cheerful. It's not my favorite Peter Max work of art by any means, but I was just encouraged to see it at all on AliExpress. Or maybe I shouldn't have been, because, you know, they're not paying any royalties, and I don't even know what's involved in that. The reason that I haven't ordered it yet is because it's not a complete artwork. There is, I think it's a print of this painting in its entirety. If you're interested in it, I can totally see this hanging in like a really cool New York studio apartment. You know, if I had my dream apartment in New York, it would definitely, this would probably be going above my couch somewhere. I'm into it. But I don't think that he considered himself a pop artist necessarily. I think he would, if you asked him, he would probably say he was more like a surrealist artist. But all of his paintings, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, they're all this kind of a cartoon, bright colors. A lot of them have people flying around in the air with stars and cosmic whatever. Well, here, let me show you. So, for a long time in my life, years, I sold vintage clothing and accessories on eBay. And this was years and years ago. And I actually had a business with my best friend who, honestly, I can say that this woman is probably one of the country's leading experts in mid-century modern, vintage, anything. Her entire house was totally decorated in mid-century modern, a lot of Danish influence. And in Ohio, in a world, you know, in the 90s, whatever, where you had Thomas Kincaid paintings and pastel floral couches and curtains that matched, and home interiors crap hanging all over the walls. Her home was a very, very welcome escape for me. It was off the chain. You were stepping out of Ohio right into New York City. It was just amazing. Well, anyway, we had a vintage clothing enterprise going on, and we sold vintage clothing on eBay. And this was back in the day when you could go to Goodwill and you could spend maybe $50, fill your cart up with stuff, come home and make $1,000. Well, I haven't always made that kind of money in my life, but we were making some really good cash. One of the things that I enjoyed finding, because it was literally my job at that point in time in my life, that my job was treasure hunting. That's what I did for a living. Or I used to tell people I spun straw into gold, which is kind of what it felt like too. But one of the things that I loved finding, which was actually kind of hard to find, even back then, were Peter Max items. You know, he had sheets and mugs and t-shirts. And I actually got on eBay last night and I found this one. But this painting reminds me of a puffy shirt that I found. It was a puffy sweatshirt that I found one day when I was thrifting. And if you don't remember puffy sweatshirts, or you're not old enough to know what they are, they usually had Disney characters on them, and they were puffy sweatshirts, and they were really uncomfortable. You would think that they would be so comfy and cozy and fluffy, but no. And I happened to find a puffy sweatshirt while I was thrifting one day. Probably paid like $3 for it. Brought it home, listed it, and sold that sucker for about $250 on eBay. That is why I love this Peter Max painting. I haven't ordered it yet because it's not a full render, like I said. And I'm kind of waiting to see if AliExpress will make a full render of it. I don't think they're going to. But it's definitely a painting that I want to do in the very, very near future. I hope that you enjoyed today's Drill and Chill episode. My timer is about to go off here. I'm going to, like I said, I will link to that painting that's on Amazon below, the print, so that you can check that out. And there's also some really cool Peter Max books on there. There's a book, a Peter Max works of art catalog, I guess I want to say that it is. Would make such a nice coffee table book for somebody who's into any kind of pop art. So run down there and check that out. Thank you all for joining me on episode 1 of the Drill and Chill saga. If this is something that you're interested in, please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so you know the next time we drill and chill. Remember, truth without tact is cruelty, and I will see you next time.